Today I'm going to go over the audio equipment that I used to record a wedding. Now, just to get started, audio equipment, in my opinion, is one of the most important investments that you make. It's easy to get caught up with lenses and camera bodies and the recording quality that you're getting on the video side, but audio is just as important and maybe even more important. And the reason why is because if you can't understand what they're saying, then it really takes down the quality of the video. If you have wind, if the audio is distorted, it really detracts from the overall quality, not just for wedding productions, but just in general. You need to have good audio. And so with that, I'm going to go over the equipment that I used to record a wedding a couple weeks ago. Now the gear that I have, it's kind of whatever I could put together. I borrowed a couple pieces of equipment, but it doesn't really matter about the gear as much, to a certain extent. So with that, I'll just get into explaining what I have. So for this past wedding, and for any wedding I see in the future, kind of the setup that I'll be using until I get better equipment is two Zoom H1s with a Rode Lav Go and a Rode SmartLav Plus. These are both very small but durable microphones. What you get when you pay extra for the Rode Lav Go style kind of microphones is you have a Kevlar cable, so it's reinforced at the ends. It does really well against the wind covers that they provide with it, do really well against wind. I actually tested this on a bike ride. I rode it and I was talking, and I was going about 15-20 miles an hour and was not able to get any wind or like popping wind noise. So these seem to work well. And then I also have a Zoom H4n Pro, and so this is cool. It allows me to record audio from the PA system that might be at the venue, and this is useful for when you get audio of the bride and she's not mic'd up. You can get it from their wireless microphone or music for the dances, stuff like that. I just plug into their system with this. More on that later. So first, talking about the Zoom H1s, these came out quite a while ago, but they still work great. How I have it set up is lavalier 90-degree connector into here. I have the level set at 45. You can try this out for yourself and see if it's a good level for you. Basically, you want the audio levels to be around -12, but I would say maybe -18 just to be safe when you're talking normally like I am now. And then the concept of setting gain is such that you can always increase levels afterwards. If it's too soft, you can always increase it afterwards. If it's too loud and it distorts the input, the preamp, the analog to digital converter, when it writes out to the SD card, once it distorts, you can't get that audio back. It will sound bad, and that's the line of thinking for these recorders. And if you're picking up not totally bleeding edge equipment, it'll likely be like a 24-bit recorder max. And so on here, the settings I used are 48, you can see it on here, 48 kilohertz, 24 bits. Newer recorders like the Zoom F2 or the F6 or stuff from Tentacle or sound devices, etc., they are more expensive, but with 32-bit as opposed to 24-bit recording, with 32-bit float, you basically don't have to set the gain. You don't have to worry about it distorting because of a combination of how the preamps are set up and also the way it's written out digitally allows you to adjust the levels without having to worry about losing quality or distorting. And so the other settings that I had for the Zoom H1, on the back you could see low cut is on. It doesn't really make a difference for these lavalier mics, but it generally helps you avoid wind noise and other stuff like that. Auto level is off. You don't want the recorders ramping up the gain, and you hear a lot of noise, you hear a lot of ambient noise, but also like hiss from the recorder. It's really distracting. Just set the recorder to the proper level and err on the lower side when you're setting it. And then lastly is MP3 versus a WAV file, and the file that you want is a WAV file. It's not compressed, it's a bigger file, but with the prices of SD cards nowadays, I have a 32 gigabyte SD card, and you could basically record for 24 hours straight, or when the battery dies. So you definitely don't need to worry about the quality. On the Zoom H4n Pro, settings are the same with respect to 48 kilohertz, 24 bits. The level, I set the levels the same on here, and then actually I might do it differently. If I have an RCA and I have both of these plugged in, I'll set one lower than the other. That way the gain in here can kind of serve as a safety track. If the levels are too hot coming from the mixer, you can always just take the track that's lower, and you don't have to worry if the other track is distorted because you have a backup. And then if the output from the venue is an XLR, so some cases is if the audio output you're getting is from a powered speaker, a common way of getting audio is you plug into the pass-through on the speaker. Now you have a long cable here, and then the other end plugs into this Y style splitter. And then what I have here is two attenuators for XLR. One is -30, one is -20. And then these two go into the inputs of the Zoom H4n Pro, because the Zoom H4n Pro doesn't take line level signals that professional mixers output at, that the speakers that the mixers are plugged into pass the signal through, which may be referred to as like +4 dBu or dBV, I'm not sure. But anyways, this only supports up to -10 dB, and so that's why we need these, because it's a line level, it's really strong, it's a really hot signal. You have to attenuate or lower the signal before you plug it in here. And so when I'm plugged in with XLRs, I have the levels for 1 and 2 set to the same level. That way I can just hit the button on the side and it'll adjust them simultaneously. But when it records it, because I have a -20 and a -30 decibel pad, the audio levels will be 10 decibels apart. And so that's that. Some things to keep in mind, if you're getting audio for the ceremony using this, if you go to a different place for the reception, you might want to lower the levels on here a little bit if you can. Maybe use like a -40 pad instead, because music tends to be louder and you don't know where they're running their levels wise in the mixer. Generally the spoken part of the ceremony is a lower level than the music, and everything else, announcements, speeches, maybe can get a little bit louder than at the ceremony. And so that's it. And you'll see, if going back, I have 3 audio recorders, one for the groom, one for the officiant, 2 Zoom H1s, 1 Zoom H4 to plug into the mixer, and then don't forget you also have the audio from your camera, and so you could attach a shotgun or whatever. I found it useful to be able to add a little bit, especially for like the first dances, to get the reaction of everyone watching, because the audio from the speaker or from the mixer from the Zoom H4n Pro is literally just the music, but it's nice to get people clapping and reacting to that. If you have more of a budget than what is here, if I were to upgrade this equipment, I would probably invest in maybe 32-bit recording devices, so I don't have to worry about the gain as much. If I had a field recorder that could support line level signals, I wouldn't need to use these attenuator pads. And also, if I had all that and I was happy, after doing the ceremony, you need to sync the audio somehow. And normally, how I did it for this last wedding is you just kind of look at all the waveforms and you line them up, or maybe you could have software do that for you. It is a little bit tedious. One thing that would help, especially if you're recording with, say we got 3 audio recorders here, maybe you got like 2 cameras or 3 cameras running, look into the Tentacle Sync products. They actually, I believe, can record 32-bit and provide you with time code, which is another layer of data that's with your video or with your audio file. And how that works is you have a bunch of different, in this case, like this Tentacle Sync Track E would basically replace the Zoom H1. It would be its own little field recorder. And so you have 2 of those. I guess the main to connect to what would replace the Zoom H4 would probably be, I don't know, for me, like Sound Devices Mix Pre 3 2, or the Zoom F6. Maybe that supports timecode, I'm not sure. But basically, when you put it into your editor, you have all the files from your cameras and your audio sources, and it'll all be perfectly lined up for you. You won't really have to do you don't have to worry about lining them up. It just saves a little bit of time. So that probably was longer than it needed to be, but I hope this information was helpful. All this equipment, at least half of it, is mine. I'll continue to refine the process, but this worked well for me at the last event that I did, and I have another one coming up, so I'm excited for that. But yeah, hopefully this video was helpful. If you have any questions, you can leave it in the comments below. Thanks.